Welcome to mmlearn.org. I'm Maria Wellisch, and I'm delighted to have a couple minutes to spend with you about some things you might want to know, and they're actually the top 10 things you might want to know about medication. And I don't like to take credit for anything that I haven't developed or didn't come out, so I want to make sure. And I found this online in a blog, and I thought it was fabulous. But it is medication use safety training for seniors, and it is put out by the NCPIE, and I'll have this information on the slide here for you because I do love to give credit where it's due. But I think we make so many mistakes with medicines, and I'm not saying just you, but they say these are 10 musts for seniors, and I'm a senior. I get to count myself now as of June, I believe it was, as a senior. And I looked at this list and thought, oh my gosh, I'm a professional nurse, and I do many of these things or didn't know some of these things. So I want to run them by you and share. The first one is about side effects of drugs. These are symptoms or feelings that you get that are beyond what the drug is intended to do. Some drugs are supposed to give us feelings, but I'm going to give you some examples. It's like dizziness, it's nausea, it can be confusion, it can be constipation or diarrhea. These can be very mild or they can be serious, but no matter what, if you're having an unintended effect from a drug, you should report it to your physician and let them know. Many times they can change the drug or they may want to stop the drug. Don't stop it abruptly, but make sure that you call your physician. The next thing is about generic drugs. There's so much confusion about this, but these are just copies of brand name drugs. So I'm probably not allowed to use examples, but it would be like saying Advil. But you might have the same type of drug, not called Advil, that is produced by a local, like a Walgreens or a CVS brand. It's a different brand name. But what's interesting is people tend not to buy them because they don't think they're as good. But the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has very strict standards for these items that they must be identical to the brand name drug. So you don't have to be afraid if somebody asks you, do you want generic? And generic tends to be cheaper, and it's not just over the counter. The third, probably to me, is the most important thing we're going to talk about, and that's drug interactions. And that's when a drug interacts with another drug, a condition, or a food, or alcohol, or changes the way that the drug would normally act in the body. So let me just run about 4 of these with you. There is drug-drug interaction. We have to think about if you're already taking a medicine and you add a new medicine to it, you may have some very strange side effects, or there might be a very big reaction to that. So you always need to let your doctor know what drugs you're taking, because many times they know what drugs interact with one another. And the other thing is it can increase or decrease the effectiveness of the drug that you're taking. So some drugs that are ordered can decrease the effectiveness of an antibiotic, or they can decrease or increase the effect of something that you're taking for your diabetes. So the most important thing here is we don't want you to be a pharmacist. We just want you to consult your pharmacist about all the drugs you're taking as well as your doctor. Number 2 bullet there is drug condition interactions, and that's when a medical condition that you already have affects how your body responds to certain medications. That's very important to know. So you might be on a blood thinner, and when you're taking the blood thinner and somebody puts you on aspirin or Motrin for back pain, and they might have a condition where this might cause more bleeding for you. So that's a drug-to-drug interaction. So again, the importance of this is letting your pharmacist know every drug that you're on. I know that for me, I don't always go to the same pharmacy. So if you don't use the same pharmacy, this becomes even more important that you keep a list of all your drugs. The third one is a drug-food interaction, and that's when a drug reacts with foods or drinks that you have consumed. So foods can affect the way that drugs are absorbed, and a lot of times you'll see things on a container like, do not take this medication with grapefruit, do not use alcohol or consume alcohol while taking this medication. You know, sometimes I kind of disregard those little, or can't read those little labels. And yes, I am getting older, my eyes are getting worse, and I recently bought a magnifying glass because those little labels are really hard to see. So I hope that you'll see, these are so tiny on the side of a bottle, but they're important to look at. And then we have what we call the drug-alcohol interactions, and this is on the bottles usually, but when a medicine reacts with an alcoholic drink you've consumed, the drug interaction can increase or decrease. We always think that it's going to make it worse, but it can actually decrease effectiveness also. I have learned to be just open and upfront with my doctor. If you drink, and that doesn't mean you're an alcoholic, but if you, whatever your condition is, don't be afraid to talk honestly with your doctor. Tell your doctor what they need to know. We have some great films on that on mmlearn. I encourage you to watch those as well. There's something called the beers list, and this I'm going to let you download, and you can just click on the little paper clip at the top of this player, and when you see that little piece, you click on there, they will have a copy of the beers list. And these are medications that as we age, we ought to try to avoid. Many physicians don't pay attention to the beers list, and they even are appreciative when we as nurses call and remind them. So I would tell you to make a copy of the beers list and take it with you when you go to the doctors and show him that list. This is for people usually over 65. What is a formulary? A formulary is a list of prescription drugs that your insurance plan or your pharmacy carries. And it might be important for you to know that when you're signing up for your different plans and to know what drugs are there in the formulary for who you use under your drug insurance plan. That's a good question, and if you have any further questions about it, you can always email me at info@mmlearn.org or call your insurance company and ask them about their formulary. The non-medical use of prescription drugs, this is the misuse or use prescription medications for purposes other than the medical treatment. For example, to get high. And we think of this for young people. We think of this of people who are 17, 18, early 20s. Boy, are we finding that people who are older, that are alone, are isolated, using drugs to go to sleep because they just don't want any more of the day, using this to have a lighter feeling, they're using it for depression. Make sure, don't be afraid to tell your doctor, because there are other medications that can be prescribed to help you that you don't have to do that. So don't be your own doctor. Medication adherence, oh my gosh, this is the one I fail at. It is strictly taking the medicine as it's ordered and knowing that if it's ordered twice a day, in the morning and the evening, that you take it then. If you're supposed to take it before breakfast because it's for your thyroid or whatever the medication is, those directions are given to you. We have a real problem when we skip doses or we take them at the wrong time. They're not nearly as effective, and actually they can be very counterproductive. So following that schedule isn't easy. The other thing that I think comes up very often that I hear about is, I can't remember if I took my morning drugs. I want you to know you don't have Alzheimer's if that's happening to you. That is not the only case. How many of us have gotten up and forgotten, did I take that pill this morning or not? Because we do it so often. That's why I recommend a pill box, and would say to you, if you have the morning, the noon, the night in the pill box and you load it at the beginning of the week, you'll know whether the morning dose is missing or not. Just a trick, but by gosh, it's something that I deal with as well. Overuse. This is taking more medication than is prescribed or recommended. And this often happens by accident, but sometimes it is that we think if one is good, two could be better. And that is not true. You should take the prescribed dose, and two sometimes can hurt you, and the drug would have had no value. If anything, it's going to do worse. So, again, following the directions. Underuse is taking less medication than prescribed. I've done a lot of reading on the underused medication because typically this is done for people who want to save money. And I know today with the cost of medications, our insurance plans, all of these things, life has really changed for a lot of us. So if you're splitting your medication in half to make it last longer, you need to let your doctor know that that is the reason you're not taking your medication as prescribed. Because there are many discounts offered by pharmaceutical companies. There might be a different insurance plan for you to use. There are all sorts of things that can be done to help you, but please don't do that to save money. And finally is something called polypharmacy. I teach this all the time to nurses. This is when a person takes multiple prescription or over-the-counter medications. It's common among older adults and can lead to problems such as harmful drug interactions, medication confusion, and very high costs. Your doctor needs to see all your bottles in a bag, because they keep adding things to you, and they sometimes, it just on paper doesn't have the impact that it does when you look in a bag. And we actually do that sometimes for residents where we have an independent living. I encourage you to take all the medication bottles, over the counter and prescription, put them in a bag and take them to your next doctor's office visit. He'll probably recognize Polypharmacy. I hope this has been a little bit helpful to you. It sure has, even to me, just to remind myself. And I look forward, if you have any future questions. We have lots of information about medications online, and visiting your doctor at mmlearn.org. Thank you.